of the webinar, so you can see the webinar later on our partner portal. So as usual, if you are not registered, please do that. It's quite simple. You need to go to our website, partner portal, make an apply, and wait until the registration is confirmed by the sales. So and you will be able to access on our partner portal. Okay, today I'm talking about the mesh. So why to use the cloud mesh? Okay, in general, I think in the mesh need to be seen like extra stuff that you can do in your project. For example, if you do the project for the auto coverage, an external area, or maybe a prosumer home, you can take in consideration the mesh. Or for example, thinking about the office where you already create and install a professional cloud Wi-Fi solution, but maybe you have a Wi-Fi, it has not be so stronger in a dedicated area, so you can simply plug in to add one to access point in mesh. Okay, so basically the mesh it works like this. So you will have minimum one access point act as a root, minimum one. In our cloud we call it gateway. Okay, and the are the satellites that they're gonna make a connection to the gateway. Okay, it's an automatically protocol, so it will decide automatically which is the best route for the packets. I would like to tell you one thing that I discovered during my test, and is if you, for example, block the ECMP in your network, you cannot be able to use mesh, because mesh use the ping to establishing the best route between the nodes. So between the ping, of course, the mesh understand which is the best route for the node. Okay, for the satellites, I mean. Okay, why I use these words auto connect? I will show you later, because our mesh is intelligent, so it can be also establishing cableless, so without, but sometimes fault. So in general, I suggest you to plug all access point first with a cable and do the mesh. Okay, later I will show you. Okay, so basically you can do the mesh in a 2.4 gigahertz in a 5 gigahertz. Okay, I would like to remind you that the 5 gigahertz, of course, it has in terms of the 2.4 gigahertz. So instead of 2.4 gigahertz, the 2.4 gigahertz, it has much more coverage area that can be reached. Okay, and it's much more better. Also because usually mesh works in a non-DFS channel, but because you know the 5 gigahertz it also has less coverage, so I suggest you to use the 2.4 gigahertz. You need to be turning on only parts, so don't turn it on also to outdoor parts. In case you have, for example, the 5, in case you would like to be mesh on a 5 gigahertz indoor, one access point to another access point in 5 gigahertz, maybe it's better to turn it on 5 gigahertz, of course, and both indoor and outdoor parts. In our cloud, we have, for example, different hardware version. So, and this is the case that you need to thinking about, because, for example, yes, it's in English, the seminar, Alfredo. Yes. Yeah, so in this case, you have, for example, the possibility to choose the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Like I said, I suggest you to turn it on the 2.4 gigahertz. We have two different kind of products in our cloud. We have products that can support also outdoor channel, and products that they cannot support outdoor channel. So in some case, the mesh need to turn it on for both bands, okay, especially for the 5 gigahertz, okay. But if you're looking for 2.4 gigahertz, you will not have interference, radar detection, blah blah blah. So it's better to use that band, okay. So in which kind of situation we can use the mesh? For example, take an example, this hotel. So they have indoor access point. In this case, I place ECW 220. And you will have also an external area, a swimming pool in this example. So you can put, you can have an ECW 160 outdoor to mesh with the indoor devices. And this mesh, it works perfectly. Also, you need to consider the distance between access point. The distance need to be not a lot, because also the mesh could be good, and also maybe the problem, it will be also the throughput between the root node, in this case ECW 220 and ECW 160. Guys, question to you. Do you already use the mesh with our cloud? Question, please reply on the chat box. Would like to understand if it's already, did you already test it or not? Thank you much. Any other feedback? I think it's really good to understand that. Also, I will show you later the positioning, but in general now you can use in a hotel. Okay, so in this case, for example, ECW 160 is good because it's an outdoor product. It also can support 512 clients per radio, so 1024 in total. So it's also high density products. Important is the distance between the indoor access point or whatever, so the root access point, and the outdoor, the node access point. I would say satellite access point, right? Or for example, if we're looking about warehouse stock external area. So for example, we create an internal Wi-Fi in a warehouse stocks, so with the cable. So all access points are wired, and we have, for example, an area outside like this, for example, need to be covered by Wi-Fi. Okay, in this case, you need to make sure that the indoor access point can reach and can achieve the external ECW under 60, in this case, to provide the mesh to heat. And after that, it will provide the mesh for this area example. For example, this area, we can say shipment area. So you can place a 160 access point. But important is to make sure the distance is quite okay. So you need to test by the ping if it's okay. And also you can see by in the topology of the cloud, it's still okay. So because a lot of times I will see a project not really good because, you know, they place access point too far. The mesh, it works correct, but maybe the throughput also in the other ends is not enough. Okay, so it is chicken and eggs. So it depends the distance also in this case. If, for example, we would like to coverage this area and the ECW 160, it cannot be reached very good signal from the very good signal from the indoor access point. Maybe it's the case to place another ECW 160 outdoor mesh for these satellites. Okay. Or for example, if we have a swimming pool in a prosumer home, in this case, for example, you can see we have, of course, indoor access point. I place again ECW 1. For example, curiosity for you guys, the ECW 220, we have two different hardware versions, or maybe three, I don't know, remember exactly, but we have at least minimum one. So we have V1, V2, and also maybe V3. And the reason why we have a different version hardware, and since now it's already done the V1, so we have almost only V2 and V3, is because the new version hardware, they can support also the DFS outdoor channel. So, but in general, for the mesh, thinking that the 5 gigahertz, it has less coverage instead of 2.4. So you can create a mesh on 2.4 gigahertz as always, and provide the internet on a swimming pool. Okay. So the reason why I place external the ECW 160 is because, of course, it is an outdoor product, and it can support also. It has the protection IP67. Yes. So I think it's good also for cold, blah blah blah. Okay. And for stadium, for example, because many times we do the mesh in a wrong way. We're thinking that the mesh is the best solution because I don't want to cable. I don't have the time to wire the access point. But sometimes we have to thinking that maybe is the case that we have place the cable for the access point. Okay. So, for example, in this stadium, you can see we have indoor area here with the ECW 220, and we have also external area with 3 ECW 160. Okay, in this case, of course, we have to thinking if the mesh can be establishing okay between each other, because, for example, from this to this, probably there's no issue. But maybe from indoor and outdoor, maybe it's an issue, right? So first point, all 3 ECW 160, they will go by mesh, no wired, and they will connect to the ECW 220. Second option, we will be able to, for example, connect this central ECW 160 by cable, and for sure this mesh, it will be great because it's quite close and there is only one hope. Instead of this, it's connected by mesh to the ECW 220. We have one hope and again another hope, and also for this we have one hope. So sometimes it's the case we have to thinking how the mesh it works. Okay, so and for example, on the example that I show you up on the left, please do not use mesh, because in that case, of course, we need to have an high density products with a lot of scalable solution, and of course, there's a lot of people connecting to Wi-Fi, and it's the best choice is to not use the mesh instead of maybe 1 or 2 points, but in general you have to wire all access point. Okay. When you would like to use the mesh, and maybe you can find that the mesh does not work properly, it cannot become online the nodes, the satellites, blah 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 blah. So cloud can tell you the management SSID to understand if there is an IP conflict, for example, DNS error, cloud error, no Ethernet, blah blah blah. So in general, this management SSID pop up when the clients, when the mesh points, they do not have a good internet connection, or maybe they have some problem. So it's helping you about the troubleshooting in the meanwhile you would like to establish in the mesh. Okay. Okay, this is the very good part. Guys, I have a question. Do you already, as I already asked you before, if you use already the mesh, I think it's a good ask me a question, because in this case we have 2 different ways to create the mesh networks. Okay, so the first one is auto pairing. So auto pairings is something that we can say cable-less mesh pairing technology. So basically, you have to add access point by the cloud, even if are offline. After turn it on, you can go to the radio settings and do the auto pairing. So it takes time for 8 minutes, and after that they can automatically pairing the devices. Okay. The second option, and I think it's a much better option, is the best way to create the mesh. And what it is? So basically, you have to connect all access point by cable, turn it on the mesh on a 2.4 gigahertz. Okay. No rush, so wait until all access point they will receive the command that you press. So mesh on a 2.4 gigahertz, you can see here, mesh on a 2.4 gigahertz, only for indoor parts, of course, because on a 2.4 gigahertz there's no difference between outdoor and indoor. So press only for indoor parts. And for this, I will suggest you to wait until the configuration it will be injected in our access point. But also, I would like to tell you another history. If you would like to copy exactly the same configuration for indoor and outdoor, there's no also problem. Okay, so indoor and outdoor, there's simultaneously possibility that you can do. Okay. And when you press mesh apply, in this case, because all access points are connected by cable, there's no needs to do the auto pairing. Okay, in this case, so the mesh it will be immediately injecting an access point. After 5-7 minutes, you can disconnect the access point and place into the mesh. Okay, of course, you need to power up by external PoE adapter or switch or whatever. But in this case, there's no need to do the auto pairing. Okay, auto pairing is also, it's only when you would like to establish in the mesh in a way of cableless. Okay. Which optimization do I suggest you need to do? For example, if you would like to set up a static route for mesh, because, for example, sometimes it goes in one street, after 10 minutes it will go to another street because it can reach 2 different route access points. So you can disable the mesh on a single access point, and basically you can try to force the route of the mesh to the route access point. Okay, it's quite simple, I think, right? Of course, you will also have the topology view, and I will show you later the topology view when I'm talking about the demo. But in general, you can see, for example, for this ECW115, we have access point mesh node, the 230 access point mesh node, and 230 again gateway. So gateway means root access point or root access point node, and access point mesh access point node. So the remote in this case. Okay. You can also plan with Easy Wi-Fi Planner the mesh topology to understand if the distance is quite okay. In this case, you can see we have two ECW160 monotest outdoor 5 gigahertz and 46 meters. Yeah, minus 63 dBm signal. Okay. But if I will show you now, for example, you can see on the left, 95 meters, minus 73 dBm. And on the left, we will have minus 63 dBm, yes, 46 meters. So in this case, I will not place any obstacle in the middle. So it's an open space access point, but theoretically it's not true, because on a real environment, if it's less, maybe you have some obstacle in the middle. And in this case, especially the left case, 95 meters minus 73, it's not really good. But taking also in consideration that you might be to have some obstacle in the middle, and minus 73 could be become minus 75 or 77, and the mesh does not work properly. Okay, so when we're talking about the mesh, taking consideration to the average maximum 90 meters. Okay, it depends, of course, case by case. Absolutely, I agree. But my suggestion, do not use much more than 90 meters, even less maybe, because the problem is the signal could be changed and the mesh does not work again. So you know what I mean? So it's better to use a very, not low distance, but well, so try to do not a lot of distance between the nodes, okay? Okay, I would like to telling you that take a look to our next webinar that we will have in the future, of course, by Alcindo Ferreira, my colleagues from Netherlands, and of course by me, or maybe by our sales, so you can keep in touch in our next webinar. Important to subscribe to the EnGenius newsletter, because sometimes you miss a lot our newsletter and you miss our next webinar. Okay, make sure that of course you are registering in your partner portal, but also try to do the registration for the newsletter. Okay, any question, write email. Please, can you add me on the newsletter? That's it, done, finish. If you cannot understand, I can do by cloud. But important to subscribe, because otherwise you will not receive about our new webinar. Okay, we want you. Tip and tricks, of course, in our EnGenius Cloud YouTube channel. Okay, so now is the case that I would like to show you by the cloud something as a demo. I will tell you before. So I will share my screen. Wait, I will share you now. Sorry. Okay, so this is my browser. Okay, I have a question from customer. Asked me something like, from my customer, they always ask how many access point or nodes can be linked in a mesh. Okay, less as possible. This is the best question that I can reply you. And especially, for example, if we go to the topology, for example, now in this case, I have two access points, one root and one in mesh, okay? If I go on the topology view, you can see the mesh is minus 67, I guess. 67, yes, 2.4 gigahertz. I can mesh another access point to this and to that, another again. I can do a lot of, in Italy we say catena, a lot of point to mesh, to that point mesh, and again point to mesh, again point to mesh to that. So it's a lot of, so in this case, yeah, I think it's not a good way to do the mesh. So mesh need to be thinking as an extra opportunity from the installer to try to cover some external area or internal area that cannot be covered because maybe I did not wire it with a cable, for example, or I do not have the opportunity to cable. But do not see the mesh as at the beginning sometimes is good, but you have to thinking very clearly how can do that, okay? Because otherwise you will have some issue, especially for the scalability or something like that. So in general, mesh is good, but we need to thinking We need to understand the benefit of the mesh and, as usual, the non-benefit. Okay, because sometimes you can lose, sometimes you can reach. So you know what I mean, right? It's chicken and eggs, like the English says. So it depends what you need. Okay. For example, in this case, the links is quite good. Connection status, you can see, is good. So, but how can I do the mesh? Basically, it's like this. You need to add access point first in your cloud from your inventory. Okay, for example, this, and you can add access point, no matter if it's offline. When all access points are in the cloud, of course, all offline, you have two alternatives to let them be able to go online. The first, like I said, so you need to turn on mesh. You need to connect all access point by cable, by wired, and you need to turn it on mesh, and do not do auto pairing. Press on apply. All access points are wired. You wait until all access point they will become online. How can I know that? How can I understand when I can disconnect the access point to understand if the mesh it works or not? So basically, it's like this. For example, if now I make some change in the cloud, or maybe I turn it on mesh, but mesh now it's already turned on. So let me do some other modification, okay, to let you understand that when you press apply on the mesh or another kind of modification, you have to go to the access point list and check on a details page that the access point is out of date, will be updated in a few minutes. So what does it mean? It's really important. The first rule when you would like to use our cloud, and especially with mesh, is do not have rush, okay? Keep calm. Wait until the configuration is up to date, because otherwise you miss the mesh and you cannot establish the mesh in a good way, okay? So step by step, do the mesh. Otherwise, you will have a problem, okay? Because our cloud is FaaS, cloud type of server, so function as a service, okay? We push the cloud, we push the configuration that you did to the cloud, but not immediately. For example, you can see now the ECW 230.20, it goes offline. So in this case, we lost the mesh. Of course, this is the root, and we didn't lost it. But you can see the mesh is not up to date. So in this case, not the mesh, the configuration is not up to date. We have to wait until configuration it was injected into the access point. It will be injected, sorry, into the access point. So for example, let me check now if it's gone online. No, still offline. Only the root, of course, it's online because it's wired into the my network. And you can see the configuration is not good at the moment, right? So in this case, we have to wait, okay? And the same happens when you turn it on the mesh and all access points are wired into your switch. Do not immediately disconnect and wait until they will go into the mesh, because they will not. You will fault immediately. You need to wait until the configuration, I would like to remark you 10 times, because many people have a lot of rush and they do very quick configuration. Alessandro, the mesh does not work properly. Yes, because you did not wait until the time that you have to wait. Okay. Okay, so Another point for the mesh. In this case, I do the mesh for all indoor access point. So try to turn on mesh only for indoor parts, especially for the 2.4 gigahertz. If you have access point indoor, maybe ECW 2020 and also ECW 160, so you can test, but maybe it's the case to turn it on also for the outdoor parts. Okay. This I'm not sure, to be honest. Sorry to tell you, but I need to be transparent. But for the 2.4 gigahertz, usually you have to configure only for indoor parts, theoretically. For outdoor, only if you use also outdoor access point, and especially with you would like to use the mesh on 5 gigahertz, okay? But for mesh, I would suggest you to use 2.4 gigahertz. Also, we recommend to have maximum 8 access points nearby or less than 2 ops for better performance. And you can disable individual mesh function in API details page, as I mentioned you before. So you can let static access point to force in a static route. You can disable the mesh if it's the case to do that. Okay. Do not allow this access point. Okay. So in this case, you can see the configuration is up to date. So now we are sure that we can disconnect the access point and let them to make the mesh. Okay. Yeah. Theoretical, I have also this access point need to be do on mesh, but need to be joined into the mesh group, but it will want to be go online into the mesh. PSC channel. What is PS? This is for 6 gigahertz. Okay. Okay, guys, do you want me to do a short test in a real environment mesh? Because now, for example, I have this ECW 230. It never become under the mesh with auto pairing. I don't know why, but maybe I will connect by cable and understand if it can be goes into the mesh by wired. So do you want me to test with you guys, or maybe you have any question? Maybe I can do that. So I will try to do that with you guys. So we have ECW 230. In this case, it has been powered on by the switch, and the switch, of course, is need to be become online by the mesh. So we have mesh access point also with the switch. It's also possible to do that. Okay, if you agree, guys, I will try to connect this switch to my network to let understand if it will be go online, and I will disconnect again to try to use the mesh. Okay, agree, guys? Let me know into the chat. Okay, I'm now to turn it on the mesh. Wait, guys. Okay. Okay, now I turn it on the switch and the ECW 230. Okay, because before I test the auto pairing, but does not works for this access point. Maybe because it's too close, I don't know. But we have the option B, so I can connect all by cable, wait until it will be online, and then I can disconnect and let him to do the mesh. I will show you very important point, guys, because a lot of people, they have a rush, understand that they need to wait until a few times. Okay, so we have to wait until 5 minutes until it will be go online. So we can wait. So now I already connected the switch into my network, the 230. I power on the 230 with the switch, ECS 100P. Okay. When they will go online, I will try to let them make the mesh also with the switch, not only with the access point. And that's the important point that I would like to remind you. Okay. So sorry guys, but I need to wait until all configuration it will be injected. For example, now, and after that I will reply to the question, you can see that I have only 2 access points online. The switch still offline. Oh no, it's already online, 44 seconds, great. So then we have to wait until the access point it will be online, okay? In the meanwhile, I think I can reply to the question. Question say, I believe that you haven't had in the network, so it doesn't take the configuration of the mesh. Exactly. It doesn't take into the, I never been connected here to the network. Okay, I click on auto pairing. Okay, exactly. Another question from the customer. He asked me about outdoor mesh question. Construction company working a tunnel, access point LTA router in each tunnel opening. If you assume a good antenna coverage between nodes, what is the maximum number of EnGenius mesh node that? Martin, send me an email, okay? I will try to maybe call you and you can ask to me directly. Okay, I wrote my email to all you guys. So I think this real-time test, I think, is good because we can understand the benefit of the mesh and also the non-benefit. Okay, now I think the access points are online. Let me check. Yes, great. Now I can disconnect the access point. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Let me check. Details. No, I cannot disconnect now. If it's online, this does not matter that you can disconnect and let him do the mesh because the configuration is out of date. So we will be updating in a few minutes the configuration. So we have to wait, no rush, okay? Otherwise the mesh does not work properly. Question says, what is the maximum distance between interior access point, indoor access point? It depends the kind of the wall that you have in your home or in the office. I would suggest you do not do much more than 30 meters, 30, okay? Maybe even less, 25, 30 meters, 25, 30 meters, 30, okay? And you can check on the topology. Later I will show you on the topology the signal if it's good or if it's not good. And from the topology, you can understand if it's the case to try to put close to each other, or try to, you can maybe increase the distance, right? I think this is really important. Okay, let me show if I can disconnect the access point and the switch to let them go to the mesh. Yes, Alessandro is online. No, we need to check here on the details page. No, I cannot. Also now, if I now disconnect, it will not work in the mesh. I need to wait. Let me also switch on the LEDs so I can understand better the mesh if it's good or not. And later I will show you also from the topology if the mesh is good or not. Let me check if now I can disconnect. No, still cannot. So no rush. Wait until the configuration here is up to date. Now is out of date. Let me check for this, for example. Of course, it's up to date. Yeah, exactly. But for this, not. So make sure to check the latest that you had, and not the other, right? I think now it's okay. Let me check. No, I need to wait. I still need to wait. Okay. Guys, I think these steps is really, really important, because many errors become like this. The customer didn't have patience and they immediately disconnect and the message. Okay. So, do you have another question? In the meanwhile, we wait. This access point will go online. I think this real-time test is good to understand better how it works. No, cannot still. I need to wait. Ora. Okay, so also another suggestion that I can telling you is to let the access point in a DHCP, do not set up a static IP. Okay. I think it takes a lot of time now. I don't know what's happened, but yeah. So let me check now. Maybe I can disconnect it. No, still cannot. I would like to remind you another important suggestion. You can see I have ECW 230 connect to the switch, and now connect, of course, to the router. But I would like to let him goes to the mesh also with the switch. So later we will have access point to the switch and switch an access point connected by the mesh. Okay. If you would like to understand better if the cloud works good for this access point, for example, you can open up the web page and you can check exactly in the access point if it goes to the cloud correctly. Of course it will, but yeah, so we have all green LEDs. So local connection is okay, internet connection is okay, cloud is okay. So the only thing is we have to wait. Now, if it goes to the access point, still out of configuration. Now the LEDs turn on. So probably I think soon we can disconnect. and I will show you that you can mesh access point and also the switch. Important point, guys. 1 month ago, I received a complaint from customer told us that the mesh does not work properly. Okay, if you have, for example, 2 access points that you would like to mesh each other and power up by the same switch, you have to make sure to disable the spanning tree protocol. Otherwise, they will kick off the mesh. Okay. So, or maybe, no, sorry, you need to disable the mesh on one access point, because if you have one switch, connect 2 access point, you will get a loop, right? So then you have to make sure to disable access point on one, to disable the mesh on one access point. Okay, now is up to date, you can see, right? Configuration is up to date. Okay, now I can disconnect from the main network. Okay. Okay, so now it's disconnecting from the main network. And it will become on the mesh very, very soon. Okay. Yes, Aristides, ask me. Okay. So now I disconnect the access point, the 47, of course. Of course, it does not work because now it needs to be recovered by the mesh, and you have to wait until it will go on the mesh. Okay. So the important point for the cloud is do not have rush to configure the mesh, okay, because otherwise it does not work properly. Okay, for example, now you can see I can access on a 230, but for example, in the mesh topology, you will not have updated it. So you have to wait until it will be updated. Okay, now we have the mesh on 47 is the mesh point. Another is the 49. You can see, right? This is the 49. This is the 230. Of course, I can ping if I can open up the web GUI, because in this case, it's not cache. Okay. If you want, you can also ping the 192.168.189.49. It works. And the other is 47. Perfectly. Okay. Okay. So in this case, the mesh works. I was telling you that it works perfectly, but you can see on the topology, let me check, is not up to date. But in general, so now the mesh works because I already disconnected the ECW 230 from my main network, and it's already gone to the mesh. Okay, So important point is, as usual, and I recommend you before to wait until the mesh it will be established in the best way. So okay, so now it's perfectly okay. So unfortunately, I cannot show you the topology because it take a lot of time, but yeah, it will be show you that I have the 230 connected to the switch, and the switch and 230 connect by mesh. Okay, of course not the switch, I mean the access point. Right. Okay, any question, guys? So first point is do not have rush, okay? No, rest this. You can connect all access point switch all together at the same times, turn on the mesh and wait until the configuration it will be injected. After that, you can disconnect not one by one, all together. But you have to wait the time they need to establish in the best route between each other. Right? So then the problem, no, not the problem, but the thing is to do not have a rush, okay? Wait, okay? And you can see now it's already up to date. We have the first one, access point, you can see. The second one is already access point, and the third one is gateway. Okay, now it's up to date correctly. Because the first two are in the mesh. The third one, the latest one, is the gateway, so it means the route. I also renamed the route. But if you can see on the topology, yeah, it's not up to date. We have to wait until it will be recovered. Okay. So of course, if I would like to understand if it works, you can also ping the access point, or you can open up the web GUI, and it works perfectly. Okay. In this case, mesh it works. Okay. One important point that I discovered during my test is do not turn it on with the mesh the DCS channel, because otherwise the channel will be changed for certain access point and the mesh will be down. So do not use the DCS. Okay. I will do a video for this. Probably I now upload on YouTube channel, because I think it's quite important to mention about do not have a rush, do not use DCS, and the mesh also on a 2.4 gigahertz, etc. So guys, if you do not have any question, I think I can close today's webinar. I would like to say thank you to participate to this webinar.